We're live. We already have many friends with us. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Diane. Hi, Gail, Wendy, Linda. Many people are joining us. Hello. Buongiorno.
Buonasera. You are back where in our nation's capital?
In our nation's capital.
After your sojourn in New York.
Yes, my sojourn in New York has come to a close, and I'm back in DC ready to
I'm
crack
so
some
happy to have you back.
skulls. I'm going to crack some skulls, get this town back in order.
Exactly. If you really want to get to the root of what went wrong in Washington, D.C., you left.
I think that's it. A lot has happened since I left.
So much. Yes. Yes, indeed. And so there's that. Anyway, welcome back. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a special, special place, Washington,
yes, it is.
D.C.
Especially in
the
summer.
Oh my God. All right.
So,
what are we talking about?
Well, let's start. What should we start with? We could start with Putin.
So I will say this. One of the things that I have a little group that talks about what's happening on Russia and Ukraine.
Why aren't
together.
I invited to this group?
It's very special. It's super secret special. I'm not quite sure why I'm in this little group, but needless to say, one of the most interesting things was that before Trump turned on Putin, before he really got tough, one of the things that one of our members said was he's going to turn on them. Totally correct. He's going to support sanctions. Totally correct. He is always going to want to talk to Vladimir Putin one-on-one because he believes in the power of personal negotiations. And I think all I can say is that's right. So we'll see what happens. I'm not happy.
I will say Putin doesn't seem that, like, on one hand, he wants to meet and he thinks it's important. On the other hand, he's not, he's kind of laying out the same BS that he was before. Certain conditions have to be made. We need to talk about ending the root causes. And there's a lot of back and forth as to why, whether Zelensky should be in this meeting. I don't really have a problem with Trump meeting with Putin first, if, and it seems like he has kind of, changed his mind a little. We'll see if Putin can change it back. But, if he's not going to go and cook up some deal that screws over the Ukrainians, I don't have a problem with it in theory. If eventually, he can't make a deal with Putin about Ukraine without Ukraine. But to kind of get a conversation going, I don't have a problem with that. What I do think is kind of, he's calling it what, quote unquote, or, experts are calling it improvisational diplomacy. But it's like high level summits, like on a dime. It's like and I'm not saying that like everything, if a lot of times when things are like pre-cooked, nothing comes out of them when you have these communiques and all of this stuff. But certain things need to be, it's not like, oh, Danny, let's get together later tonight and talk about Ukraine. And I know we're going to solve it. And if it were that easy, they would have done that already.
Well, so look, you pinpoint a lot of what's wrong with diplomacy, right? Diplomacy it's like a minuet. You know exactly what the steps are going to be. You know exactly what the music is going to be. And generally speaking, you also have a good sense of the outcome before you walk in the door. That's not the Trump game. And I will say that I think Putin has in many ways worn out his welcome with Trump. He has played this. Everybody likes to think, oh my God, Vladimir Putin, he's so wily, he's so strategic, he gets this guy, he knows how to manipulate him.
Yeah, good point. Dr. Lisa is saying how many wars have ended, because of this diplomacy. I mean, some of them, in the Balkans, look, there have been.
The Balkans didn't end because of diplomacy. The Balkans ended because of the use of military force.
No, I understand. But eventually,
right.
You got together and had these talks. But what I'm saying is I feel like, it can't just be, like, off the cuff, like, there just needs to be if Trump's gonna sit down with him, he needs to know a little bit more about what he wants to get out of it, not just ending the violence, is what I'm saying.
Well, again, look, I think you pinpoint a lot of the weaknesses here. I think that, um Trump has done a good job in turning around. I think he's done a good job in putting the screws to Putin so far. I think he's done a good job in reversing the Biden policies so far. But I agree with you. We need to have a better sense of what the outcome is. And unfortunately, I get that the expert class is in bad odor with everybody, both Democrats and Republicans, fair enough, and you and I know this. But I think that understanding what the right end game is an expert class question. When I wanna know what the borders need to be, when, my when Mark Thiessen, my podcast co-host, wants to write in the Post what the borders need to be, he asks Fred Kagan and Kim Kagan and Jack
Right.
Keane. That's who he asks, because what Putin will say are defensible borders are not defensible borders, and I think that, that's something to be worked out. Look, what can I say to you, Elise? I understand that Trump wants to talk to him. I don't think it's contemptible to wanna end the violence.
No.
At the end of the day, that's not a bad goal for an American president, even though it sounds simplistic. I just you want the feeling that Donald Trump and his idiot Steve Witkoff are walking in the door with their eyes open, and that's our biggest concern, right?
Well, and I mean, Trump had said a couple of months or a month ago or whenever he said it that I think Putin is playing with me. And like Trump thinks he's going to get together and, because he's such a great deal maker, he's going to end it. Putin believes the longer this goes on, it's better for him. So Putin views this more as like, he just wants to keep Trump, warm.
So what do you think Putin can offer to Trump that Trump would view as
A win.
desirable? No, no, no. So Steven says, my husband Steven, says that he thinks that Putin will offer an end to the drone war, right? As something that might appear to be desirable. I I think Trump probably is onto that game. I hope he is, but it'll be interesting to see. Yes, I can, and yes, Sandra Mackenzie,
And
I can
Sandra also
identify that.
asked, while you're at that, Sandra also asked, why isn't Tulsi Gabbard in these talks?
Well, because she's a nut job, and even
Well, and
Trump has
because
figured that out.
they don't, she's freelancing, listen, she is just not on the same page as the Trump administration. I don't know why they hired her in the first place, but now she's kind of on the out. So that's I think what she's
Well, let's hope she stays there. Look, what are the differences? The differences are that, and I think Elise and I agree on this 100%. The differences with the Biden administration are that the Biden administration didn't want Putin to win, but they didn't want
want Ukraine
Ukraine.
to lose.
Right, all that was their goal. They just didn't want Ukraine to lose. And the, willingness of Trump, both in his first term and now once he's turned around, and we have to admit there's a turnaround, it's not that he started in this place, willingness to provide the necessary weaponry without the restrictions of the Biden administration is hugely important. Because when you give somebody something, you can have a gun, but you can only shoot it at his foot. You can have a missile, but you can only shoot it at his house. You can't shoot it at his headquarters. That was the Biden administration MO. And insofar as Trump has done the right thing, and we can argue about whether he's done the right thing enough, he has been willing to turn around on those things. Anyway, you and I have spent 10 minutes on this. We should probably talk about something else. What are we going to
I'll
talk
just
about?
say one last thing. Witkoff has visited Russia 5 times, met with Putin most recently for 3 hours, and no one really knows what's going on in those discussions. That's
Right. But that is a universal disgrace, okay? This is the guy who is, doing our Middle East negotiations, Gaza, Yemen, Iran, and I can't point to a single win on his list. So, yeah, you walk in the door and the arrogance that you bring to something like this, the idea that I, or you, by the way, would walk into a meeting on Wall Street about a massive, you know, multi-billion-dollar deal and have the arrogance to not want somebody who knew what they were talking
Right.
about next to us, right? This is so long
And that
ago.
Trump and that a president look, and that a president would want that. He sees everything as this is what, we should just talk, at some point we should just talk more about some of these conflicts in greater detail, but he sees a lot of these conflicts the same way as a real estate deal. Ukraine, it's a real estate deal. Israel, real estate deal. Doesn't understand the historical, ideological,
I think Trump has evolved a lot from that position. I don't think Witkoff has. And that says a lot about the two of them. So that's a different deal. But let me just say one last thing that I learned long ago in Washington, but apparently is also true in New York. There are people who are nervous about their expertise, nervous about their importance, and they don't want anybody around them who's smarter than they are because they don't want to look bad. And
right.
then there's the other side of that, people who love to be surrounded by smart people because they know that smart people make them look good. Steve Witkoff is the former.
Yeah.
And that's not a person who should be in any of these places. And I'm never going to regret a bad word I said about that guy. He may be the nicest fellow in the world. I've never met him, but no, thank you. All right. Should we
I,
talk
on the
about
other
Meg?
hand, know I'm bad at math, so that's why I would not walk into a room and
Oh,
want to
me
make a big
too.
deal.
This is what we have in common. What are we talking
Gaza.
about? Gaza? Gaza.
Well, Netanyahu announced that they're going to take military control of all Gaza. They only have 75% of it right now. Um, and they think that this is the way to get the hostages out.
You know, Um, we had an I told you about this. We had an unbelievably good podcast, and I think all our podcasts are great. But last week, everybody go and listen. It's our "What the Hell is Going On" podcast. Mark and me. We had Mati Friedman on. He's an Israeli journalist. He's not a BB guy. He's not a he's not an apologist for this government. Um, he was absolutely terrific. He used to be with the AP. He talked about how the media covers this, but he also talked about what's going right and what's going wrong in Gaza. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about the people we understand. We understand the Israelis a lot better. They're much more like us, right? The Israelis are much more like us. We don't spend a lot of time talking about Hamas. And one of the really important things he said, it was from last Thursday, Sandra. So not this week, so a week ago today. Um, so one of the things that he talked about is that it's important to understand that Hamas doesn't, they're never going to say uncle. They're never going to let them go. They're never going to quit. It doesn't matter how weak they are. They will fight like the Iranians, like the Lebanese, like the Egyptians, like the Syrians, like everybody. They'll always fight to the last Palestinian, right? And
Because they don't care
as
about
long
the
as
Palestinians.
exactly. So if you understand that, then I think that you understand the invidious position that the Israelis are in, which is, okay, we thought after we kicked the Iranians' butt with the help of the Americans, there was going to be a deal. They were going to cough up the hostages. We were going to have a ceasefire. That didn't happen. Hamas wouldn't agree to a ceasefire. They wouldn't agree to release the hostages. It was in that circumstance that they said they're going to take all of Gaza. Now, you and I know exactly what did you and I say before we came on this? Well,
What does the winner get?
what does the winner get?
First
To
prize
Gaza.
is 2 years in Gaza. Second
To
prize is 3 years
yeah.
in Gaza.
So, just a little bit of history for everybody for just 1 second. So, Gaza is obviously, not contiguous with the West Bank. Gaza was a part of Egypt. After the Six-Day War, Gaza ended up under Israeli sovereignty for that period after '67, but the honest truth is, when offered it back, the Egyptians said, "Yeah,
No, thanks.
no, no thanks." And, of course, originally in the '60s, the Palestine National Covenant rejected the idea of Gaza being part of Palestine. They also rejected the idea of the West Bank, by the way, but that's a different story we can talk about some other time. But I think it's important to understand that Gaza is not a prize for anybody. There's a reason why Hamas won there. Hamas won there in 2006 after the Israelis fully withdrew and withdrew all Jews in 2005. Hamas won not because of the Israelis, not because
Because
of
of
the
the
Jews,
Palestinians.
but because of Fatah, because the Palestinians hated the Palestinian Authority. And that's the thing. They took it, they made it their fiefdom, they stole from the people, they degraded the people, they stole all the aid, they stole all the water pipes, they stole all the money. They did it all with the UN's backing and the UN's support. And now the question is, how do we fix Gaza? And so the Israelis are like, okay, well, I guess we have to take it. But it's not a good solution.
And I mean, look, I don't think it's going to get the hostages out either, because I think they'll either kill them or there'll be some friendly fire or something. I mean, I don't, and then he says, "Oh, well, we're going to take it, but we're not going to hold on to it. We're going to give it to the Arabs." The Arabs won't take it
Won't
under
take
those
it either.
they won't well, and they certainly won't take it under these conditions.
Under no conditions. Elise, let's be honest. What condition do you see the Arabs taking Gaza under? Honestly.
Not take it like and live and hold on to it and own it, but I
What
think
about
that
peacekeeping forces? No. They've said no. Okay.
some of them said that they would
These
contribute to them if there was some kind of larger deal. But they're not going to be like, "Oh, Israel, thank you, hand over, pass the baton, I'll take
right,
it from you."
but you understand there is, this idea of a middle ground where there's nothing, the hunger, Dr.
Please.
Lisa, is a the solution is very simple, which is that unfortunately Hamas has to go because Hamas wants people to be hungry. Read Mark's piece in the Washington Post today. It lays out the numbers in excruciating detail. So, I think the problem here is there is no answer, right? There and this is something we're not used to dealing with. We're good at working towards a solution, right? How do we get a ceasefire in Ukraine? Well, we need defensible lines. How do we get rid of the Assads? Well, the Assads have to go, and then we're, happy. For Gaza, there's no easy solution because there's no substitute for Hamas. And this is what is clear. The Palestinian
Yeah.
Authority is not a substitute for Hamas.
Well,
The
but
Palestinian Authority is
it could be
terrible,
this open-ended occupation with no clear exit strategy.
which is exactly the wrong idea as well, right? The right idea is a trusteeship. The problem is you can't trust the UN to administer a trusteeship because the UN is beyond redemption in my view, and it took me a long time to get there, but I'm there.
Another positive development this week, not
What?
there's everything with this gerrymandering. And this kind of what I see is what's going to happen is there're going to be this tit for tat, right? I mean, look, we both discussed this before, and you mentioned you sent around a good article from the National Review. Everybody does gerrymandering. The Democrats are in the situation that they are in now because of the gerrymandering that they did, outside of this kind of every 10 years, you're supposed to every decade look at redrawing borders. But now, okay, so we know that the Texans are conducting these mid-decade redistricting to gain 5 seats. Then in California, Newsom's like, well, if you're going to do that, I can get this many seats. And then Vance is in Indiana today saying, okay, well, how many seats can we pick up there? And it's like a never-ending cycle of trying to get
Oh,
1 or 2 seats.
so the Supreme Court's gonna get involved, and that's the article I sent to you. The Supreme Court's gonna get involved, and
They did get involved
basic
once, right? In 2019, I think.
they've gotten involved. Well, this is an issue where over our 200, almost 250 years, the court has gotten involved more than once. The idea is that, what would normal people want? Normal people would want districts that are fundamentally drawn to look like districts. And they make sense geographically, and they make sense in terms of in terms of history, and they make sense in terms of their borders. And they should look basically normal, right? They shouldn't look like some bastardized amoeba in which they've been stretched around, and this is where I think the court is going to get involved, because for the last 60 years it has been the Voting Rights Act that has been the basis of argumentation for a lot of redistricting, right? You don't have enough Black people, you have too many Black people, there's not enough equity, there's not enough representation, whatever it is. And the court has signaled in repeated ways, Democrats as well as Republicans within the court, liberals as well as conservatives, have signaled that the Voting Rights Act is not going to be something that in perpetuity allows this bizarre drawing of districts that enables people to have safe districts. And you know what, Elise? I'm perfectly happy in the interests of normal districts being drawn, that Democrats lose seats and Republicans lose seats, and that our
Based
districts
on
look
based on
normal.
what they're fighting for and based on the platform and based on their record. Not like, "Oh, my record sucked, I can't get reelected, let's redraw the district."
Yeah, I know. Although
And
we know
this
plenty
is
of
I
people
wanna
have
point
lost
out
seats too.
this state representative, Mitch Little, a Texas Republican, was on with my friend Brianna Keeler on CNN, and she asked him why they're trying to do it when it just did they did this 4 years ago after the last census. And he said, I'm gonna quote, "Because we can. We have the votes. It's legal. It's legal for us to draw the lines on political performance. We have 3 Hispanic predominated districts in South Texas we can carve out for Republicans, and it'll be a good thing for Texas because we can."
Right, and anybody who thinks to themselves, "Oh my god, everybody in Texas, they think they're above the law," just go and look at the state of Illinois, and
Yeah.
you will suddenly realize this is not a Republican problem or a Democrat problem. This is an American problem. And look, I'm not going to say that our electoral system is broken, as one of our uh, viewers has just said. In any situation where you have a set of rules, people who are smart are going to try to find a way to bend those rules to advantage them. That's the way everything works. A good system, a good democratic system, is one that withstands the vagaries of these manipulations. And I mean, look, I'm happy we have the court. I want to see all of this regularized, but gerrymandering is based on a concept that didn't just rise up since 1965 and didn't just rise up in 1905. It rose up a long time ago, and so we're going to need to put some effort behind making it right.
I mean, this is very naive of me, I know, but I'm just so sick of both sides being like, "Well, it's good for the party." You know what I mean? Like, what about what's
Yeah,
good
but
for the
look,
country?
well, you can make the argument that what is good for the party is good for the country because your party is better for the country. This is the
Fine, but it's really
rationalization.
not about that.
It's about power.
If it were just about that, fine. If you thought that your party really had, all of the best
Right.
policies, you wouldn't have to do this because you'd know that you would get elected anyway.
There's a reason we don't have as many swing voters as we used to, and it's because a lot of people think that what is good for their party is in fact good for the country. So, look, at the end of the
Wrong.
day, if this was our worst problem, Elise, if this
Right.
was the worst thing that happened, I would be thrilled. It's not. Ah, for once,
Let's move
your
on to
internet
vaccines,
connection.
shall we?
Oh, God. Yeah, somebody said this week has been bad, and I mean, every week is a pain in the ass. Look, I cannot fucking stand Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I have never met a Kennedy that I thought was a decent, upstanding human being, and he is a
JFK
perfect
Jr. was pretty
example.
decent.
JFK, the drug dealer of Brown University, my friend.
Stop. Don't
What?
talk about the dead, though.
I'm sorry. The dad who took, 2 other people with him because he thought he was such a good pilot? You are JFK Jr. was a scumbag
He's
and a
no
grifter and a
RFK.
nepo baby.
He's no RFK. Come on.
Yes, because he's dead,
Because
and
he's.
RFK isn't. But
Let's move on
what
to the
he is being allowed
vaccines.
what he is being allowed to do, look, one of the greatest things about our country is the innovation that we see, and his willingness to stifle innovation, his paranoia and channeling of the worst health conspiracy theories is so gross and so bad for our country. Ugh, it's a disgrace.
And I will note to everybody that like you're not, during the whole COVID and vaccine, like you were, about the mandates, you were very tough and said like you didn't agree with a lot of these mandates. So this is not someone saying this who's like, you
No,
know,
kidding.
little Miss Vaccine over there. I mean,
Little Miss Mask. No, listen, I hated them and I thought they went overboard. But in terms of the mRNA innovations that were made first under the first Trump term and later on, this is just incredible, revolutionary technology. This is something that will eventually be used to beat cancer. And look, somebody rightly said the $500 million that they're gonna deny the vaccine industry is not the end of the world. Um, but reputationally, the idea that Health and Human Services wants to stifle innovation, that they're part of the paranoid conspiracy vaccine autism lunacy is just so embarrassing and so bad and so actual genuine anti-science, unlike the arguments that were made during COVID. So
well, but
anyway,
I mean, you and I
we've
were
agreed
talking
too
about
much here.
this when we were getting ready. We were talking about this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm all for disruption, but not for the sake of like being a disruptor and having no alternative for making things better. If you think something's bad, redirect the research somewhere else. It's just like, oh no, I don't believe in vaccines, therefore I won't fund them.
yeah. No,
And
listen,
I
this
blame
is
again,
total
I
banana.
blame Trump. He knew exactly
Well,
who
you
this
blame
guy
Trump for
was.
everything.
He knew exactly who this guy was, and this was a shame. As many of his appointments were shameful in this cabinet, this is the most shameful. This is the most politically brazen, cynical appointment. There's not one thing that this guy has. Okay, you want to make America healthy again? This is not the way.
I'm not sure he's the worst, but yeah,
Who's
we
the
agree about
worst?
this.
Who's worse?
I don't know. The jury's still out.
Mhm.
The
No,
jury's still out.
this will have profound. No,
No, no, it won't have profound implications. That's the one thing I'll say. It will have limited implications. It's wrong. It's a bad decision. But at the end of the day, the technology, the innovation, the brilliant science that American companies, by the way, have innovated are going to withstand the RFKs just like they've withstood other terrible presidents and other terrible leaders because you know, our government may not be the best, but I don't think it has the power to ruin American innovation. I really
I
don't.
hope not.
I
We're
hope not
coming up on
too.
6 o'clock. One quick thing, now the tariffs are kicking in, and the market's really, kind of burped, but then moved on. Companies are saying
A
it'll be about,
beautiful image. Thank you for that.
uh, would you rather you say farted? I mean, but,
Same.
companies are saying that, they ate the tariffs in April because they thought that they would be, worked out. And now they're saying they are going to have to pass them on to the American consumer. So maybe it'll be, several months before we start to really feel the pinch. Um, but you and I've talked before, the American consumer is the one that's going to get fucked on this.
Well, look, at the end of the day, I you can respect the idea that you want to
Level the playing
equal
field.
that you wanna level the playing field, and I get that it requires a sledgehammer in some cases, although I'm not a sledgehammer person for the most part. Um, but for me, it's much less the sledgehammer aspect, which I think the market's kinda gotten used to, I think you're right, and much more the capriciousness. What is he gonna do tomorrow? If there were some predictability to this,
Right, right, exactly,
then you would, and also if there was some rationale behind it. I
right,
mean, you know, okay, you think we need to level the playing field? That's a reasonable argument. I may not agree, I may agree, but what are you gonna do tomorrow? I'm sorry, what's gonna lead me to believe that you're gonna do this tomorrow? So, yes, that is the problem. You don't want unpredictability. Where unpredictability can be a huge payoff in foreign policy, and it can be, right?
right,
Um, in economics, I think all of my colleagues at the American Enterprise Institute would agree with me that, yeah, going from 25 to 50, and by the way, why is it 50? Why isn't it 47? If there's some math behind this, and you and I agree that we don't know math anyway, but if there was some math behind it, why does it always even out to a nice round number? I don't get it. Anyway, on that happy note, I think
yes,
we are past our hour, and I need to go to sleep.
nighty night.
Nighty night, everybody. Thanks for
Thanks
being
for
with
joining
us.
us. We'll see you next week. Same
Welcome
bat
back to
channel,
DC,
same old
Elise.
bat. Thanks.
Bye.
I've been kind of dealing with some personal things the last few weeks, so I haven't been writing as much, but I'm back in
You need
business
come back.
and
We need you.
yeah. Okay. Bye
Take care.
everybody. Talk
Bye.
soon. Bye.